Yes, everybody, welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com, or, of course, if you are watching on our fast-growing YouTube channel, that is Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THS staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me, as he always does, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ here for, I guess, football season's like not quite officially here, but basically officially here at this point, as this is a fall camp kind of advanced podcast, as we're going to be just recapping the offseason a little bit. Had ACC kickoff a couple weeks ago as well. Had some big football access in June. We'll hit on a little bit too, which we've already discussed in some previous stuff, before looking ahead a little bit to fall camp and a little bit at the schedule. So, AJ, I'm going to run through real quickly kind of the next few days and what they look like for those who don't know, kind of going into fall camp. So players and coaches, all that jazz, report on Thursday, July 28th. Practice officially begins in the morning on Friday, July 29th. And then we'll have an open practice, actually open to the media and fans, on Saturday in Chapel Hill. Guys, if you will be there, we'll have a lot of THI staffers there. If you get there a little early, come say, if you see us, come say hi to us. Even if you see us during the thing, come say, hey, we love to talk. We love to meet a few you guys that we haven't met before. So if you, like I said, if you do see us walking around, the stadium a little bit, come say what's up, come say hi. And we'd love to chat with you for a little bit as well. So, AJ, football season's here. I mean, it seems like the offseason flies by like it always does. And, fall camp is officially about to get underway. So, AJ, I want to look back a little bit before we look ahead to the start of fall camp, and just give us a little bit of a recap of kind of how the offseason's gone. I mentioned some access in June and the ACC kickoff in, a few weeks ago, which we haven't really been able to hit on yet. I believe it was last week. So just give people a little bit of an insight, kind of maybe what they missed and kind of what the offseason's gone like for Carolina football.
Yeah, for me, the season always starts at the ACC kickoff, which was last week in Charlotte. It's sort of when my wife knows, okay, so first day of the next season, she's like, okay, I'll see you in April, that kind of thing, football and basketball and all that. It was an information-filled off season, just covering UNC athletics in general. As far as Carolina football goes, there wasn't a ton of news, which is good, because usually news on the off season is bad news.
Yeah.
So they, as far as we know, nobody got in trouble. They took care of their transfers early on, back in March and early April. So they haven't had a bunch of surprises. A couple kids decided they weren't going to play anymore because of injuries. They get to keep their scholarship and finish out academically, but they're not going to play football anymore. But otherwise, there wasn't huge news. I think, to me, the storyline is what we've learned about how PLPs, the player-led practices, went. And that's very, very positive. Lots of leadership, lots of spirit, and accountability. I know every year, it's like in baseball. Look at what I root for. Every February, I'm excited, thinking maybe they'll be a little bit better this year. Right? That's sort of the baseball thing, right? In football, it's sort of the same way, where when you talk to kids, even on programs that are going to struggle and have been struggling for a while, they all say the right things in July. The thing about it is that I believe this with Carolina, because Mac has been very, very straightforward about the fact that he didn't think last year that he wasn't getting the right vibe. He didn't think they had great leadership. He didn't think that they were as focused as they needed to be. A couple of players, Cedric Gray included, and British Brooks last week in Charlotte, both said, look, and I'm paraphrasing here, we let the hype get to us.
Yeah.
Guys weren't showing up to meals sometimes. They were showing up late for PLPs. There wasn't the same drive and edge that they had previously. They didn't really have a normal summer the year before, obviously, but the first year there was a lot of spirit, renewed enthusiasm after Larry left and Matt came in. So they needed that this year. I think what's interesting is that the player council, which was 21, 22, maybe 23 guys the last couple of years, is down to 15. Maybe you sort of narrow the focus on who needs to lead, what voices need to be dominant, and that might make for better leadership. I don't know. I'll ask Mac about that here in a few days. But I do think that the offseason has been positive in the sense that there has been no bad news. And everyone's talking accountability. And everything I'm hearing off the record is that this really has been a successful PLP season, if you will. The guys have gotten in a lot of work. If there's a drawback, it's wide receiver. There's not a lot of them. So they've used a lot of walk-ons that have been mandatory at the PLP. So the quarterbacks have someone to throw to. That's been maybe the only negative, if you will, but I think it's been a pretty solid off season, ready to get this thing going. There's a lot of question marks looming over this team and this program as we head into the season. So I'm anxious to get there Friday, which is open to the media. Saturday is open to everybody. Yep. And then we get the first half of the first practice, full pads practice, which is their fifth practice. We get to watch that in person as well. So I'm looking forward to getting a huge dose of Carolina football here in the next week.
Yeah, you'll definitely be getting that. And I know a lot of Carolina fans are probably, especially the diehard football fans, are absolutely excited about things getting underway too. We'll hit on some of that, kind of expectations and, going into the season here in a little bit towards the end of this podcast. But I want to give a shout out to TarHeelIllustrated.com real quick before we do that, guys. You can sign up for just $8.33 a month. AJ took over this site in 2014. Our prices have not changed since 2014. And guys, when I say our message boards have been absolutely on fire over the last couple months, the offseason message board has just been fantastic. David's been all over it. AJ's been all over kind of these conference ACC realignment rumors. That's been a fascinating board to follow with some of the insight that he's been able to get from some sources. And obviously Dean is all over the football recruiting stuff as Carolina's just been racking up commitments over the last couple months as well. So if you want to see that content, though, you have to be signed up for a premium membership. There's stuff that obviously to stay running as a business, we can't just go tell the whole world. It stays in our message boards, and that's premium content that you have to be signed up to see. And guys, the more money we make on the website, the more subscribers we get over there, the more stuff we can do over here on YouTube, as this YouTube content is 100% free that we give away. So guys, check it out. Head on over to TarHeelIllustrated.com, sign up for just $8.33 a month, and the link is in the description below to do so. Great time to do it too, right before the start of fall camp, because there's going to be a ton of stuff going on in there as well. Insights, observations, all that jazz, and whatever we hear as well that we're not going to release to the public, you can find it in the premium message board. So guys, go sign up. Link is in the description below. $8.33 a month. It's great.
The premium subscriber Zooms that we have.
Yep.
Those are starting back up, and you could only be on them if you're a premium subscriber, and that's pretty good stuff.
It's good stuff, man. It's good stuff. A lot of interesting, great conversations that we have, and who knows, AJ might even give you a few little tidbits or nuggets if you pop in as well. I know he's done that before with some of the insight.
Eight or 12, right?
Yeah, exactly. 8 count over 12 15. You're getting some of those. So guys, if you want that as well, $8.33 a month, TarHeelIllustrated.com, links below. Go over there and sign up. I promise you won't regret it, and you can become a Carolina insider too at TarHeelIllustrated.com. So AJ, kind of moving this conversation ahead a little bit, let's focus on real quickly. I want to talk about the ACC kickoff more selfishly in a lot of reasons, because I haven't really had a chance to sit down with you and talk about the ACC kickoff too much. So let's hit on that real quickly before we talk a little bit more about the storylines going into fall camp. You and Brandon were there. What were some of your just kind of overall takeaways and observations from being in Charlotte and talking to, Carolina and some players?
Yeah, I think the accountability thing that I just hit on, that was reinforced big time. And we had the players, we had 11 players and 11 coaches on the same day in June, and they're at the podium. And they're just not going to give you as much when they're at the podium as opposed to when you're 3 feet away and you're talking to them. They give you more. It's more of a conversation, better dialogue, more fluid. And if a door is kicked open, you can go through it. Or you can nudge a few doors open yourself and kind of take the player there as well. So we got some bit more stuff, I think, in Charlotte. A lot of it was reinforcing some things we heard in June, and it was maybe a little bit more detail on it. So I think the accountability is it. The other thing is this team has a chip on its shoulder. They have a chip on their shoulder because they're not being respected, which I think is interesting because they went 6-7 last year.
Yeah.
They had some of the most, they had some, their losses were headline losses. The way they played at Virginia Tech, the way they just weren't ready. The pathetic performance at Georgia Tech.
Yeah, that was bad.
They fought back, but the monsoon hurt them at Pitt, but they still lost fair and square. And the grotesque meltdown in Raleigh, and then the complete no-show in the bowl game. So their headline, other than beating Wake, and if you're going to beat the number 10 team in the country, Wake Forest isn't going to move the needle as much as a lot of other teams. No disrespect to Wake. That's just the way public perception works. So they're coming off a season of a lot of negativity. Sam didn't get drafted as high as people thought he was. I mean, there's just a lot of negativity. So these guys have a chip because they're not getting respected. Josh Downs is the only player on the first team all-conference team. They're picked third in the Coastal. No, there's just no buzz. And there's a lot of buzz about State and Wake. So I do think it's kind of interesting to see North Carolina football with a chip and a legitimate chip, and something that when they talk about, to me, it's not a talking point. It's genuinely coming from their thought process and stuff that they're getting from the vibe around the Keenan Football Center, and when they're at the Coleman Practice Complex and they're doing a lot of stuff together, the conversations they have, some of the fuel that they know the other guys have. I think that that's interesting. Maybe that's one reason why there's more accountability, because the guys are pissed off a little bit and they have something to prove. So that tends to bring dudes together a little bit more. So we'll see how long that lasts. They have some interesting games early that will challenge that focus, that will challenge a lot of those intangibles. And if they get through that, they have a chance to have a special season. But I do think going into fall camp, they're in a pretty good place mentally and physically, because a lot of the guys that were injured are healed up. Mm-hmm. I don't know of anybody that's going to be limited when fall practice starts. I may have learned something 10 minutes after this podcast ends, and I can't come back in and put it in the podcast, but I think that generally speaking, they're healthy. They've got a good disposition, and I think they've got a really good staff in place, and they're embracing all things Gene Chizik. When they went to Charlotte for the bowl game last year, I don't think they were embracing all things Jay Bateman. So there's a lot of positives in that respect. Yeah,
I agree. And I think that chip on the shoulder is a positive for Carolina and for this team. And I think it's a kind of a segue into what I want to talk about next. And I think the reason I'm saying that chip on the shoulder is a positive for this team is because you talked about, the expectations last year, them not really being able to live up to the hype and being able to handle that, guys getting kind of resting on their laurels, thinking they've made it when they really haven't done anything yet as a program under Mac Brown. Significant. I know Orange Bowl appearance is great, but you still lost the game. They're still trying to get to that pinnacle of where they really want to go. And even getting to an Orange Bowl was not the end all be all of why Mac Brown came back to Carolina in the first place. Right. So, and I think that chip on the shoulder is a positive when you look at this team, because we've had some interesting conversations off camera. I've had some interesting conversations with Carolina fans as well over the past couple of weeks of people asking me, how good, what do you think this team's going to do this year? And I've always said, I can't really call it. And here's the reason. I think the defense should be a lot more improved. You didn't lose a ton of guys. You got Gene Chizik in there, who's proven not only across the country, he's a heck of a defensive coordinator and just a football coach in general. He's proven at Carolina that he can, change a defense around in a season, what he was able to do in 2015. So I think that's a positive. But you flip to the offensive side of the ball. You got Josh Downs. You don't really have a ton of other receivers there that have proven they can do it at this level yet. You've got, two quarterbacks that are trying to duke it out for a starting spot. That's going to be the big storyline going into it. You got a running back room that is full of talent, but as of now hasn't really done much, with DJ Jones, British Brooks being a couple of the guys that are more experienced, but heck, they haven't played a ton of football in their time at Carolina as well. So it's just a lot of question marks kind of on both sides of the ball of being like, okay, I think they could be good, but you could also see some situations where it is going to be some learning curves and some growing pains, especially early in the season as this team tries to figure out who the heck it's going to be. So, AJ, quarterback's obviously the biggest storyline going into fall camp. What are some other things you're going to be looking at, especially on Friday and Saturday at those open practices when you get a chance to see them? What are the other storylines you're going to be kind of following and looking to see what happens as fall camp shakes out?
As you know, I'm a big line of scrimmage guy.
Yeah, so I know you love that.
I'm going to spend a lot of time with the OL and DL. Mm-hmm. I want to know what group Spencer Rowland is with when the offense, when the first unit runs some of its drills. I want to know if it's Spencer Rowland or Zach Rice there. And then I'll look for that every time I'm there. That's one of the first things I'm going to look for throughout fall camp. And then once they start playing games, we'll have a much better idea. I want to see him because he wasn't there in the spring. I want to see what he looks like. Mm-hmm. I've been told that he's put on a lot of weight. He's embraced everything. He's been a complete asset to that room. And that's good. I mean, that's an old room. They lost a lot of dudes, but that's an old room still. There's a lot of dudes in there that have been legal to drink for a while. So there's some gravitas in there, but there are also some guys that have been incredibly inconsistent in their careers. They need to be more consistent. William Barnes has high upside. Ed Montelis has high upside. Montelis has been better than Barnes. He's played a lot more, but Barnes can be still has the talent to be a fantastic player, but he hasn't been that yet. And I think that kind of symbolizes the offense to me. And that's sort of the other thing I'm going to look for offensively is just who pops, who stands out. I'm going to sit back. I'm going to watch who pops. We know Josh Downs is going to pop. Who else does? I assume Bryson Nesbitt will. Yeah. But who else does? Because outside of Downs, they don't have anybody super proven at receiver. Antoine Green finished the year really strong last year, had some very good games. Mac in the spring called him quote unquote elite.
Yeah.
We'll see. Mac has called the Storm Duck an NFL guy, a pro before. So we'll see. We'll see if Antoine, if he's totally divorced from the injury and it's moved on 100% from that. I'm talking mentally here because it's for a lot of guys, it does take a long time. Some never get over it. If he's that guy and he's that second receiver who can get you 60 passes this year, and you look at the way they can use Nesbitt, I think it's going to be really interesting. They might have enough at the receiving end of things to get some damage done. That running back, British is the guy now. I'm not sure British will be the main ball carrier by the time they get into October or November. I really like George Pettaway. DJ Jones has to stay healthy. There's just a lot of stuff to watch on offense. It's center. Corey Gaynor, Brian Anderson. When we talked to Jack Bicknell last month, he said, yeah, Gaynor and Anderson are both just working at center right now. Gaynor played some guard at Miami. So I'm thinking, well, maybe they both get on the field because they're both 6-year guys. They both have played a ton in their careers. Can you deal with a scenario where one of them's not playing? Especially the guys you bring in. I think Gaynor's probably the one that gets on the field first. Everyone cites him as one of the leaders on offense, the leader in that room, the loudest voice in that room. Anderson, I think, has been that to some degree before, but Gaynor might have a leg up on that job. How does Brian handle that? I think Brian is a good guy. I think Brian wants to win and might even have aspirations to coach, so he'll probably handle it pretty well. But until you see it actually play out that way, it's difficult sometimes to project. So I think, to me, the offense is what I'll pay attention to more because there are more question marks. To answer your question on the other side of the ball, well, I just want to see that defense in a game. I want to see 11 guys facing the offense, facing their assignments on offense when the ball snapped, because we didn't get that all the time last year. And I think that's one of the many things that Gene Chizik has changed and will change with the way they approach things defensively. So there's going to be a lot of storylines to look for, Jacob, and you can pinpoint a few if you want to fire them at me here. But I think from a broad perspective, I'm a lot more interested in the offense simply because there's a lot more question marks. The defense, we know what they have. They got a lot of numbers. They have a lot of talent. Everything's scaled down. We know what Gene did the first time he came to Carolina, which he inherited a defense in 2014 that was miserable and was awful in the bowl game loss to Rutgers, but he fixed things a lot. They weren't great the next year, but they played winning football. They got a lot of turnovers. They got off the field and allowed the offense to win a lot of games. So does he make that same change this year? He says he's got more talent, especially on the defensive front, than he had when he inherited the first time. So there's a lot. You know me. I go into fall camp. There's 700 things I'm looking for. There might only be 700 things I could possibly look for. That's just the way I approach it because it's always very exciting.
Yeah, and I think it's even more relevant with this team because, like we just talked about for the last 5 minutes, there are just a lot of unknowns. I mean, it's hard to, people asking me, how good do you think Carolina's going to be? What do you think's going to happen? It's like, I think they could be pretty dang good. And I can also see why some people are down on them when you look at just how many question marks. You're relying on a lot of people that maybe haven't really proven themselves yet to reach that potential this year. And of course you'll get a few that will, but you're going to get a few that maybe won't. And we're going to continue to harp on it. And this is the last thing I'll ask you in a second.
Well, let me comment on that real fast.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I think this is a healthy way for people to look at things. How many legitimate question marks are there on offense? Well, you have one at quarterback until you see them play.
Big one, yeah.
We know they're both very talented. I think they both could be good Power 5 quarterbacks, either at North Carolina or somewhere else. The way the game is today, like if Drake ends up the starter, maybe Criswell leaves, right? That's Mac has been open about things like that. Yeah. Nature of the beast. But we haven't seen it yet, so it's a question mark. Until it's answered by performance of the field does, it remains a question mark. Question mark about wide receiver. They have 8 scholarship guys at wide receiver. 8. And 2 of them just arrived in June as true freshmen. So there's question marks there. Who is going to help Josh Downs? Who will allow Josh Downs to help them? Because Josh says he wants to make the other guys better. Who's going to take advantage of that? At running back, we addressed all the question marks there. We don't know if any of those guys will ever step out and become really good players or feature type backs. If you want to achieve the things this program wants to achieve, you need feature caliber backs. Oh, yeah. The offensive line, a lot of older guys there. And then, of course, there's Zach Rice, the true freshman. Who's going to step up? Everyone says Awesome Richards is much better than he was before. But, Awesome was kind of the same guy last year that he was the year before. Yeah. So he needs to be better. So a lot of question marks there. I think the only position group on offense that's in really good shape for sure is tight end. I love Kamari Morales. Copenhaver played well. I think they can run. They ran some 3 tight end sets at times last year. We'll see that more this year. We'll see Nesbitt line up as a wide receiver as well. I think that's a good, almost a given offensively of what they'll be. But there's too many question marks there. So if you have 5 question marks, 4 question marks, the odds are 2 of them will be answered positively, and the other 2 might not be.
Yeah.
And if they can get a third one answered positively, they have a chance of having a much better season, obviously. As trite as it sounds, only time will tell, Jacob.
Yeah, and I think that's why fall camp's going to be such an interesting thing to cover. And even defensively, too. I mean, you would expect them to be better, but until we witness it with our 2 eyes on a Saturday, it hasn't happened yet. So there has to be improvement. Yeah.
Was it the scheme?
Yeah.
With the lack of physicality at times, was it because guys were caught thinking when the ball was snapped, so they're a split second late, and then their point of contact sometimes wasn't where it should be? Are they a split second faster this year, which means the contact's more point on? And when you hit a guy when he's coming towards you, you're going to drive into him with a lot more force than you hit him from the side.
Yeah.
So things like that. But we're not going to know that until either we get reports from scrimmages, how the inside run does, and some other things as far as physicality up front goes, which they're really pushing hard on both sides of the ball. But the offense, we can see that in practice. And I'm looking forward just to seeing what I need guys to pop in order for me to say, okay, I really think this guy's going to be good this year. We saw dudes pop before. We saw them pop. I've covered a lot of different programs, and there are some dudes when you see him, you're like, okay, that guy pops. You don't need to see him in a game racking up stats to know they can play. Sometimes you can just see it at practice. Sometimes you can't tell at practice with certain players, especially on defense. So that's what I'm going to be looking for. And I think that fans that go Saturday, you want to look for that as well.
Yeah, agreed. And real quickly before moving on, even the defense too. I mean, think about if you can have a much improved, even just an above average to, solid defense. Think how much pressure that takes off the offense with inexperienced quarterback, with inexperienced players. We haven't really seen that. It's usually been the offense kind of in Mac Brown's tenure. It's been kind of the offense carrying the defense. If you can get it flipping it where the defense steps up and is maybe a little bit better than the offense early on, that takes so much pressure off an inexperienced offense that's still trying to find its wings, especially under a unproven quarterback. So that's another question mark going into it as well. And that'll obviously have a direct effect on what we see on the football field. You know what I mean?
If you get one extra stop this year, that would have changed the NC State game. If you get that stop in the first half against Pitt, it changed that one. If you get that stop on the first couple of possessions against Virginia Tech, could have changed that one. And then Notre Dame. I mean, Carolina was in that game. Well, they couldn't get those stops late. You get one of those stops, maybe things are different. So, and that's with all the issues that they had. So I agree with you. If they can get one extra stop and maybe have a better field position situation, get better field position for the offense, maybe get a few more turnovers, that kind of thing, with some more sacks, force some third and longs, which is where a lot of your interceptions come from. That's the kind of stuff that happened in 15. They weren't number 10 in the nation defensively in 15, but they jumped way up. They moved from like in the 100 in the 110s to the low 60s, high 50s, something like that. But they did that while having an offense that could move, and having Marquise as one of the greatest leaders I've ever seen in college athletics running the show at quarterback. So they got to complement one another. If the defense gets stops, offense has to take advantage of it in order to win games.
I've said it off camera a lot, but I truly believe it. I think Carolina was a slightly above average defense away last year from having a pretty dang good year. You know what I mean? I know there was other problems too, but when you look at some of the ways they lost some of those games, you mentioned NC State, you mentioned even, there's other games in there as well that if Notre Dame, if Carolina could have just made a few stops, might be having a different conversation right now. You know what I mean? Exactly. Another game to throw.
The catastrophics, Florida State, the penalties that kept drives going. There was a lot of sloppiness, a lot of messiness. And the bottom line is, I don't think there was tremendous confidence about the scheme, about what they were doing, about the plan when they got to Charlotte. And they played like it. And it wasn't the first time they played like it. So right now they have that. There's it's a proven concept. You and I were saying last year, football 101 on defense, You got dudes, let dudes be dudes. I think one of the things they're going to do now is allow dudes to be dudes. So Des Evans got to have a hand on the ground. Hey, Des, see that guy? Go get him.
Go make a play. Yeah.
Don't worry about covering a running back 30 yards downfield.
Yeah, it's not
which Cedric Gray half joked about it. Like, yeah, I'm not going to have a 6'6" guy covering some dude down the field like that.
Doesn't work.
Put a hand on the ground, beat the tackle, get to the quarterback. That's your job. I think the simplification on defense with the communication and pre-snap, with the responsibilities, and the fact that you don't need to have 15 elements to a plan. Be really, really good at 5 instead of being okay at 15.
Yeah.
And you're going to be a better unit.
Agreed. AJ, last thing I just want to hone in on for is real quickly before I wrap it up. We're going a little probably longer than some people went on this, but that's fine. A lot to talk about. Quarterback position real quickly, based on kind of what you've heard throughout the offseason, probably even more particularly at that ACC kickoff last week, based on kind of what you've heard and what you've been told by Mac and some of the players, especially probably the coaches in this situation. I think I already know the answer to this, but I know Carolina fans are wondering and probably want to answer to this quicker rather than later. Do you think the quarterback battle is something that rages on through fall camp and even potentially into the season?
Well, I don't know. The scrimmages are going to be huge. Mm-hmm. When they have scrimmages here in a couple of weeks, they'll have 2. I guess you're allowed 2, 2.5, I guess, at fall camp. Now, I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I've talked to people off the record, people who know a thing or two, and they're not tipping their hand on this if there is a hand to tip. Mm-hmm. I think in the end it's going to be Drake May, but
that's what I think.
I'm not flying out to Vegas tomorrow to wager a bunch of cash on that.
Absolutely not.
So not doing that.
No.
I think both of them can be. I think both of them can be really good. I think both can be really good with this team. I think Drake has a little bit more upside in his game. But there's an intangibles thing about Jacoby, which kind of reminds me a little bit of Marquise. Remember, Mitch had more upside than Marquise, people said, right? Marquise was better for that team. Mm-hmm. He's one of the great leaders I've ever covered in college athletics. An unbelievable guy, and every dude in that room would have taken a bullet for Marquise. I don't know if Jacoby's that guy or not. He doesn't have the same personality. I don't know if Drake's that guy or not. We'll have to wait and see them go through the battles before we figure that out, before we get a better idea of those things. But it is a battle. It is a competition. And I think the staff's okay with it going on for a while because neither one of these guys, other than in FCS games, 2 of them for Jacoby and last year for Drake, have taken a significant step in almost 3 years. Mm-hmm. So remember, Drake didn't play his high school year as senior year. Because the fall season was canceled and he enrolled early, so he didn't play in the spring season. Jacoby, this is his 3rd year in school. So I think the staff's okay with this stringing out. The more they have to compete, the more every throw in practice matters. The more every rep matters. It's only going to make them better. So we're going to refine them a little bit more. It's only going to create a little bit more of an edge to them. And you have to have an edge to your quarterback these days. The edge that Kenny Pickett gave Pitt last year was huge. It wasn't just his skills. It was the edge he played with. You need that in a quarterback. So I think they're okay stringing this thing along. And I would not be surprised if they both get reps the first few weeks. But by the time they get Notre Dame coming in, which is the 4th game, September 24th, they need to know who the quarterback is, in my opinion. Yeah. I'm not a believer in that. If you have 2, you don't have any. I don't believe that. I think you could have 2 that are really good and it just takes time to separate. Mm-hmm. But I think in this case, the program needs to march forward. This is year 4. I think that the process is should be at a different stage right now. And if you don't know who your quarterback is, then the process isn't at that stage. Yeah. So by the time they get to Notre Dame, I think that they will know. I think they should know. And it's going to be really, really interesting to see that thing play out.
It is. It's going to be fun to cover too. We'll see what happens. It's fall camp set to get underway on July 29th. A lot of storylines going into it, a lot of storylines during it, and we'll be covering it all the way. So keep it locked to TarHeelIllustrated.com. Always fun talking to you about this, AJ. I'm looking forward to football getting going and getting started. It's always nice when that August time of the year comes around. You're like, okay, football's about to start up again, and it's always a fun time of year. I'm a huge, from a working perspective, it's a grind for you especially.
Labor of love, man.
Yeah, you better love it. And I know you do because you wouldn't be doing it anymore if you didn't. I'll tell you that for free. So, guys, keep it locked to TarHeelIllustrated.com. Sign up for just $8.33 a month if you want to. Premium membership great time to do so. I'm not just saying that. I know all time of year for us is a great time to sign up, but really, truly ahead of fall camp right now. Great time to sign up with all the stuff that's going to be going on. There's going to be a lot of insight and a lot of observations you're only going to be able to see and learn about and hear about if you are a premium member. So click the link in the description below and go sign up. And let's do this. Let's end the video like this. Give us a thumbs up if you're excited for football season, if you're looking forward to it. And again, guys, if you're out on Saturday at the open practice, if you do see us beforehand, come say hi, come talk to us. We'd love to chat with you. A few of you guys put some faces to some names, especially on those message boards. Maybe I haven't met a few of you guys yet. So come say what's up, and we'll be out there in full force. Tar Illustrated will be on Saturday. So really looking forward to that one. Again, I'm Jacob Turner. He's Andrew Jones for yet another edition of the THI podcast. Like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell as well. And we'll talk to you guys and see you guys in the next one. Thanks.
Thanks.